Okay. Let's see. To introduce myself, this is the 9th time I've been to KansasFest. My first year was 1996, and it was at the other college, Avila College. And the most memorable thing about Avila compared to Rockhurst is that there were a fair number of complaints about the food over there. And I've not heard any complaints here at Rockhurst in the 8 years that I've been here in Rockhurst. So I guess we're glad that they moved to this campus. Let's see. Now, EPROMs are these little chips with a window on them. Let's see, we'll see that on the next.
Right over here on the.
Oh, okay.
Can you move it over there for the projector?
Oh, okay, sure. Whoops, let's see. There. Whoops, let's see, okay. EPROMs are little chips with a quartz glass clear window on them, and inside is a little lattice work of metal parts. Viewed under a microscope, it's incredible what you see. I mean, it's just amazing how much information goes into an EPROM, and yet the technology is roughly about 40 years old. I mean, I'm sure that if you have things like iPhone and that measures memory in gigabytes, it's in even a much smaller space. But that disk that I've given everybody in this packet, when you copy the contents of the EPROM onto a floppy disk, if it's a big EPROM like for the 2C, it takes about 5 to 15 minutes just to scroll through all of the contents of that EPROM. I mean, to think that there's that much information on that little metal thing inside just seems amazing. But then, of course, I marvel when you get gigabytes onto modern things. Let's see, the common sizes for EPROMs. Now EPROMs are used in many different technology-oriented subjects. And of course, for us, it's Apple II computers. The PC world in the early years used a pair of EPROMs. I would dig them out of waste motherboard places, and it always seemed like the PCs used 2 of them. The Apple IIe, I think, used 4 of them. One of these is actually a language EPROM because, of course, Apple IIcs were sold across many different countries. In Canada, they would want to have a French language EPROM because the French use a lot of special punctuation characters above the letters. And so by changing that one EPROM, it's fully compatible with French. Germany's got similar special characters above the numbers. There you can see these are those little quartz windows there. Now, so one of these was for the language for the keyboard, and the other 3 were all for general things in the 2E. The Apple IIc was introduced several years later, and the one EPROM, the 256K EPROM, is what does it for the 2C. All of this stuff is in that one EPROM. Now, I don't know about foreign languages. Maybe there's another way to encode the special characters, or maybe when they sold it in France or Germany, maybe they just put a totally different EPROM in there. EPROMs are used in other areas too. Used EPROMs are available on eBay, and I remember one year I bought, I think it was 24 EPROMs that said Zeiss Optics on it. Now, Zeiss Optics is a German company, and I am sure they're ranked as #1 in the camera world. Well, Nikon would fight over that rating, but I think that Zeiss goes back even further into the past. The reason I bought them, of course, is that you can erase the EPROMs and record other things on there. Okay, let's see. The first number shows the capacity of that EPROM. The bigger the number, the more capacity. Like this is the most of the ones that are shown here. Then if there is a dash with another number, that one is a relative speed number. And in general, if a device uses more than one EPROM, it's better to have the same speed on them. We notice the same thing with Apple memory chips. You know, you don't want to mix speeds in the same computer because it's likely to get screwed up in some way. Let's see, this book I bought and I've read it, Experiments with EPROMs. I think the book was written in the late 80s, the high point of EPROMs. By the way, EPROMs are still being made. I buy blank ones on eBay. It doesn't matter whether they're used or new because I can erase any of them. That'll be a topic coming up a little bit later on the pictures. But about halfway through, I will report on my own experiment. I thought that if this is the main book on EPROMs, I should do some experiment too. And the experiment that I will report is whether uranium radiation can erase EPROMs. I'll report on that in about 5 minutes. Now, this and the next picture have a story of their own. I started preparing this talk about 6 months ago, but I couldn't find my EPROM chip. Dang, let's see, I thought I stuck it in here. I searched and searched and searched. I did the graphics about 6 weeks ago, and I still couldn't find it. So what I did is, in order to have something to put on a picture, I contrived this. Now, maybe you can tell the name of this is serial. That means serial processing, like the, what is it, the Super serial card in the IIe. I wanted to get a card that would have dip switches on. This one has 2 rows of dip switch. But anyway, about a week before the trip, I finally found the card and I brought it. But dang, I guess I forgot to bring it down here. But anyway, it doesn't matter that I didn't bring it down here. You have the picture, a close-up picture of that EPROM programmer card in this packet here. I did it close up so you can read everything in the picture, but this is the actual EPROM card. And the EPROM card can reproduce EPROMs, make perfect copies of them. It requires much more, many more steps than the Cadillac of Eprom burners, which you can see pictures of in just a few minutes. The one I call the Cadillac of Eprom burners can do 8 of them at a time, all perfect. I've never found even one error on the copying of those EPROMs because in addition to copying 8 at a time, it tests every chip in there. So if you load up all 8 blank slots, it takes it longer than just doing one because it actually tests everything after it's copied them. By the way, if you picked up any of those brown envelopes I put on the giveaway table today, or I think on Wednesday I put it there for the giveaway, it includes EPROM that says KFest 2C when you put it into a 2C. It replaces Apple IIc with the word KFest 2C, so it'll keep reminding you about get signed up for next year's KansasFest. Let me pass this around though. This is the instruction sheet for how to fit the EPROM into your 2C. If the 2C is already enhanced, all you got to do is pop the other EPROM out and fit this in, and that's it. If your 2C is unenhanced, then you need to do 2 little soldering changes on the motherboard. So let me just pass these around. I mean, this will just give you an idea. Oh yeah, good. This will just give you an idea how much work is required. That little bit of soldering is pretty simple. I suppose it would scare some people that you have to solder the board. It's where you open up one connection, you scrape it off, and then you put a drop of solder on another different connection. But anyway, I put this one on in the pictures because I made it about 6 weeks ago. There is a big chip holder. There's a lever somewhere. Dang, I'm not sure. You see it somewhere?
Yeah, the upper right.
Oh yeah, there. Oh yeah, there's the lever thing. You lay it in. Now this one is actually one of these chip holders for 40 pins. The actual number of pins on EPROMs is either 28 pins or 24 pins. Anyway, I did find the actual EPROM about a week ago, so that's what's pictured here. If you count the number of blanks there, it would be 28. And there's only one row of DIP switches there, but again, unless you have that 5¼ inch floppy, you wouldn't be able to use that card. So save this package for any future time that you come to KansasFest. You know, you just might find one of these things. It's labeled as EPROM programmer. If you find one next year, then you can use the disk. So don't throw away the disk. Okay. Now this is the same picture, but with 256K EPROM stuck in there. You notice there's a lot of empty spaces there. Let's see now, the EPROMs can always be erased and rewritten. There's a lot of EPROMs sold on eBay. I would say anytime you go to eBay and search for EPROM, you'll probably see at least 50 different ads. Most of them are used, but occasionally get new ones. The prices vary tremendously, just like everything on eBay. Some people trying to get 20 bucks for one, and others selling them for maybe $2. But I'd say the average price on eBay is roughly about $4 for them, but you do have to erase them. And this kind of EPROM eraser you can buy on eBay. It's roughly about $25. The trouble is it can only hold about 7 or 8 EPROMs in this little small drawer in there. I added that LED light to it. By the way, the markings on this thing are wrong. This is a timer, but it's not just 6 minutes. It's more like these are tens of minutes. So when you erase it, I would say it takes a minimum of 1 hour, and most of the time I do 2 hours while erasing the chips. My own homemade eraser is much better. Oh wait, that's the inside of the thing you just saw. Notice the bluish looking light, that's what ultraviolet looks like. By the way, ultraviolet comes in many different wavelengths, and whatever is the most destructive wavelength is probably what the EPROM burner uses. But you got to take precautions not to look at it. Of course, when I use this thing, I shut the drawer. But with the other one, I put a cloth over the whole thing with a pilot light on it. There's my homemade one, and when I say that is better than this one, I can erase about 45 EPROMs in this one. I've put sort of sticky things on all of the sides, and then I push the EPROMs onto it. You see these up here? Those are all being erased. Mostly I use this eraser rather than that one because it can do more of it at a time. I think that over the years, I think I have probably erased and re-recorded 300 to maybe 400 EPROMs. I mean, I don't really keep count of it, but it's quite a lot, especially with that Cadillac of EPROM burners that does 8 at a time. The bulb is only a 4-watt bulb. I bought the bulb in a pet store about 10 years ago when I set this up. Pet stores do it because people put this in their fish aquarium to sterilize the water in which the fishes swim. I put this Christmas bulb here on the end because I put like a dishcloth over the whole thing, and this is a reminder that the power is turned on. Okay. Let's see, here's just another picture. It looks like that bulb has been turned off. Again, you can easily see the chips in the erasing machines. It takes roughly 2 hours. Oh, what I do with the big one is I run them for about 2 hours, then I pop them all out, and then I randomly reposition them in the eraser because if the bulb is close to one of the two ends, it's not getting as much ultraviolet light as if it's in the middle part. So I figure if I erase them with one arrangement, then pop them all out, put them back in, then most of them are in a different position than the first time and more likely to be totally erased. Because of course, if the capacity of the EPROM is 256,000 bits, you want to make sure every bit has been erased. Let's see, here's that experiment that I did. Now, my other hobby is uranium and Geiger counters. My wife hassles me for occasionally. I mean, we were married 50 years as of last year, so she's mostly put up with me over the years. But she allows me to come to KansasFest, but she's never shown interest in traveling here. Beginning about 15 years ago, I started collecting uranium because we live close to the richest uranium field in the entire USA. It's called Jurassic Canyon near Grants, New Mexico, 60 miles away. And the uranium was deposited there in the ground about 200 million years ago when this area was full of dinosaurs. The Mount Taylor extinct volcano right next to the uranium field 200 million years ago was spewing uranium from the center of the Earth. And it is the richest uranium field that has already been mined. So I've been out there about 35 times, multi-day trips. Also, I always try to get people to come with me because about the only risk there is rattlesnakes. I've never been bit by rattlesnake. I've only seen one. 2 other people with me have seen 2. Anyway, what I did is I wanted to see whether uranium can erase the EPROM chips. This is a rock with 94,000 counts per minute on that spot. Now, I moved these things as close to that spot as I could. I tested them for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours about a month ago. No erasure whatsoever. So a couple days before coming to KansasFest, I used the most radioactive rock I have ever found, 186,000 counts per minute. And I tested it in the same way, 186,000, that is very high radiation. I mean, high radiation is 40,000 and up. So even 90 some is pretty high, but 186, the highest I would ever find, I think. I tested them with this more powerful rock for 1 hour, 2 hours, and 9 hours. Overnight was the 9-hour measurement. Again, absolutely no erasure of the chips. So the conclusion is radiation does not erase the EPROM. By the way, this is the best Geiger counter company in the country. I've been there about 3 years ago for a 2-hour tour. Ludlam, every component in a Ludlam Geiger counter is made in USA. I think they get some governmental preference if a university or government agency buys it. But both Ludlam and Bicron make the same claim. Every part in there is made in USA. Now, when copying the EPROMs, something like, say, the 2C EPROM, you start with one that works, an enhanced EPROM that does work. And you need this disk that's in here to recopy it from the EPROM onto a floppy disk. Again, it shows how important keeping this disk is. Like the one that I put out on the giveaway table was made with this disk here, KFest 2C. By the way, I also made a few others. I made Obama 2C, but I didn't sell even one. I was thinking of making similar ones with the current leaders in that field, but I skipped it because nobody got that one. Well, okay. Well, that's why I didn't name the current ones. Let's see, here's WAS2C. That should be a popular one. Anyway, so you recopy the contents of it onto a floppy disk. And then when you go to make copies, you put it into the disk reader, and it reads them the other way, but you have to instruct it to read it in the other direction. That's why you got to really hold on to this disk. Don't throw it away. These are some of the 2E disks here. Now, this is the opening screen on that disk. You notice it's called Super Eprom Programmer Card. That's the title I wrote on each of these disks. And let's see, how to use this card. I would recommend, even though you don't yet have this disk, just keep looking for it if you see it anywhere. Take a look at that, because you'll see it's actually pretty complicated, the number of steps that they give you to go through. And that's why I say you really need this disk. If you found the card but had lost the disk, the interface card will not be useful. Let's see, wait, let me skip these two. Yeah, this is contents of the disk. It does give very specific instruction on how to copy the disk. It's all pretty clear, but again, it's a lot of detail, and you just got to follow it line by line, or it will screw up. Maybe you could print this out, and it'd be easier just to follow it on paper. Here are examples. 256K EPROM, that's what the 2C uses. So look at all these steps. You know, first you got to read the first half of the ROM in, and then save it, then read the second half of the ROM in. That's the way that this interface card works. Its maximum capacity is 128, and the 2C ROM is 250. This thing I call the Cadillac of EPROM burners can do the entire thing in one sweep. There it is. Look at that. I paid $400 for this about, I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago. But it is just great. It's made in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The company Logical Devices moved to the Denver area now. And you put the master chip here and 8 blanks there. It tests each blank to make sure that they're all empty. You get a red light if there's anything still recorded on the chip. I put that little white mark on there just as emphasis that you have to put the chip in a particular you have to put the notch in a particular direction. These are just buttons for the going through the steps. Another view, I put 2 of them in over there. Here's a view from the top. This is about the only thing you'd call a display, but it says OK. Now, there was somebody selling one identical to this 2 weeks ago on eBay for $125. I paid $400 for mine, and mine is totally paid off probably 3 or 4 times. I sell the EPROMs on eBay for just $12, and I've far exceeded the $400 that I paid for this thing. This guy in Simpsonville, South Carolina, is selling it for $125, but no guarantee, no returns. I told him if I announce this at KansasFest, I would read whatever statement that he might write, and I could read it to people here because it looks identical, and it did give the OK up here in his picture. I think that the OK means that everything in the circuitry it probably goes through some kind of self-test every time you turn it on. I would say it's probably 80% chance the thing works perfectly. And then he stopped advertising it about a week ago, so I guess somebody bought it for $125. Oh yeah, let's see. This is the close-up here of the display. 256 means you put the 256K Eprom in. That's the size for the 2C. Notice that they don't use 5 volts. You know, I think we always assume electronics in a computer runs on 5 volts, right? Isn't that what we always assume? They use 12 volts for this particular one. And in the early years of EPROMs, many EPROMs required 3 separate voltages while copying into that EPROM. I guess now it's just 1 voltage for the whole operation. Just another view there, you can see there it says KFest 2C, the master. Look at this. This is an ad. I think if I just told you this, a lot of people would say, more BS out of Buggie or something. Look at this price. Do you see that? $720. Somebody was asking for this. By the way, the guy in South Carolina was selling for $125. He was also adding $60 for shipping. I think this one is free shipping, but still $720 is sky high. Now, you might wonder, how do you customize the content of the EPROM? The one limitation of the Cadillac of Eprom burners is it copies the entire thing, but it has no way to alter the contents of it. Well, the way to customize it, notice I put my own name here on this familiar software. I bet at least half of you use this for copying disks, right? Let's see, copy 2 plus. What you do is you go into the book. If you have the book, there is about 15 pages in this called sector editing. And sector editing tells you how to change specific words in what is written. It's kind of focused on written text. I don't think you can edit pictures with this. Never tried it. But what sector editing does, you tell it the words that you want to change. Let's say the original says John Jones, University of Nowhere on it. What you do is to find that, you type in the exact words that you want it to find. It will search the entire disk to find them, and then it will stop right at that point. So if it's John Jones, University of Nowhere, it'll search through the entire floppy disk, and then it will show you where on the disk it is. Then you delete all of those words and write in your favored words, and it will write them on the floppy disk. And not only does it write them on the floppy disk, but every time you copy that disk, the new writing will show up, okay? Now, so to customize your CD-ROMs, like how did I put KFest 2C on? You do exactly that. You create the disk with the wording that you want. By the way, for the heading on the opening thing, it's limited to 9 characters. Okay, so if with sector editing, you can do an entire line, I'm sure, maybe even more than that. But KFest 2C was under 9 characters, so it worked. Once you've done the sector editing, and by the way, this was something I just picked up upstairs. My favorite of Copy 2 Plus version 9.1, because that's the mouse version of software. Okay.
Stephen, about 3 minutes.
Whoops, okay. Hey, there's the book I just mentioned. There was one of these with that color up there, but I left that one. Okay, I've already got 2 copies. I mean, I'd be hogging the copy 2 plus, but if anybody doesn't have copy 2 plus and you'd like a photocopy of that section, I do have a photocopier in my house, and I'd be happy to mail you a photocopy of this section, okay? But the customizing, I think, is limited to text. I just don't know how you can alter illustrations. Yeah, let's see. There is the screen that we just saw a minute ago. That's it. Okay. Any questions, though?
A lot of times with the EPROMs, like the windows are covered up, right, to avoid accidental erasure. How much risk is there of an EPROM losing its data just as the window sticker is gone and it's in your fluorescent light or your incandescent light or what have you?
Steve, can you repeat the question?
Well, I've wondered the same thing, and when I make these EPROMs, I put on a sticker, and then I usually put a large sticker over the first sticker to give double protection against it. I think as long as it's opaque, it's probably pretty good because there's very little light inside the lid of the computer. If you had anything like, I think it was last year, somebody had brought a IIe where they had a clear plastic case around the whole thing. Something like that, if you didn't have the lid on it, it's going to be exposed to a lot of sunlight. By the way, sunlight will erase EPROMs too, but I think the figure for sunlight is probably 10 to 20 hours in sunlight because there's a little bit of ultraviolet in sunlight. I live at high elevation. Gallup, New Mexico is 6,500, so we get more ultraviolet from the sun than you do down here closer to sea level. But yeah, I would always put a sticker over it because that protects it. Oh, by the way, another thing I forgot to mention is that I did another talk about EPROM chips 8 years ago in 15. And the theme of that talk was Apple II forever, one of our slogans. And with EPROM chips, they naturally deteriorate in about 10 to 20 years. Well, of course, if you got a 2C, that's probably 30 to 40 years already. Not all of them deteriorate in the shortest amount of time, but what I recommended in that talk was if you have any other way of storing the contents of the EPROM chip, say onto a DVD or a CD disc or any other way, try to make copies of it because then EPROMs could be recreated out of your recordings of them, and then Apple IIs could go on potentially forever. I mean, that's why I'm giving everybody this disc here in your little packet, is that all you need to do is to get that copy of the EPROM interface card, and you can create more EPROMs indefinitely.
Can I ask one more question? Sorry, just, like, so I have a couple of EPROM burner cards that I picked up in the computer once I purchased. I never used them. Is the software pretty generic typically?
Oh, yeah. The question is the software generic if they're from different manufacturers and at different times? Yeah, there's probably 20 manufacturers that make them, mostly in Taiwan, but throughout the Far East. And I don't think the brand name even matters. I don't think you even have to match the brand name if you have multiple EPROMs in the same computer, like, say, the IIe with 4 of them in the IIe. It's just the speed should be matched, that last speed number. If it show, a lot of them don't even show the speed number, though, so it's not that crucial of a thing, but to run it smoothly, try to match the speed numbers on it. Okay, let's see, that's it.